Hello, and welcome to Tracing Your Roots, African American Resources. I'm Kristen Morrison, Librarian Senior at Lauderhill Town Center Library. So, how do I research my African American ancestors? Well, you're in luck, because whether it's African American, Jewish, Italian, Irish, all genealogy starts the same way. You start with yourself, and you start working backwards. You're going to be looking at resources like vital records, birth, marriage, and death certificates, census records, which include information on age, immigration year, if they're naturalized, and their place of birth. You're going to be also looking at non-vital records. So you're going to be doing this when the vital records don't exist. And you're going to start with conducting extensive interviews with your family members. You're going to be looking at cemetery records, perhaps funeral homes, obituaries, and wills and probate records. So census records. You're going to start with the most recent census and work backwards. So the most recent we have currently is the 1940 census. The censuses are released every 72 years, so the 1950 census will be out in 2022. But don't just look at your family. Look at the fans, as we call them, your friends, neighbors, and associates. So they might be living next door to more family members. So make sure to look at all the people who are living nearby your family. 1870. Why have I put 1870 here? Because it's the first census after the Civil War. This is going to be the first time previously enslaved ancestors are going to be enumerated on a census. I'm not going to lie, this is where it gets a little difficult for African American research. So pre-1870 census, there are the 1850 and 1860 slave schedules. These schedules list only the slave owner by name, and it lists slaves only by sex and by age. From 1790 to 1840, the census had a column for the total number of slaves. So it wouldn't break it down by age or by sex. It's just a total head count, if you will. No sex or ages. So for pre-1870, one of the things you're going to be looking at are wills of the enslavers, because they usually would leave slaves to their sons and daughters and other family members. Tax records. Tax records are going to be helpful because they would be taxed on the number of slaves that they had. Bills of sale, because they sold slaves to others. So you're going to be looking at bills of sale. Some online resources. Of course, we can always go to Ancestry Library Edition, which is provided free through the Broward County Library System. Family Search, the Freedmen's Bureau, Afrogenius, and Cindy's List. The Freedmen's Bureau was set up after the Civil War to provide temporary shelter and clothing and money to refugees and their wives and children. So I'm going to come back to the Freedmen's Bureau in just a moment. I wanted to show you on Family Search, on their Family Search Wiki, they have an article here on tracing your African American research. And there's the Freedmen's Bureau again. So this is under Family Search /blog/en/African American Genealogy. The Freedmen's Bureau, like I said, was set up after the Civil War to help freed people. You can do a search here, and then you have the list of states, and you can search the site. So here, Freedmen's Bureau marriages, marriage registers, different counties, different states. labor records, Afrogenius. Sorry. This is one of the oldest sites for African American genealogy out there. So here you can have their search. Here's their different records, chat resources, stories, etc. Okay, I'm going to close that. Oops, yes. And Cindy's List. Cindy's List is a large repository of websites, and she has them categorized. So here under African American, these will be all the different topics for African American genealogy, and you would just select one of these. So we're clicking on General Resources, and you can see here all of, see there's Afrogenius again, and the different resources here, all relating to African American genealogy. American Ancestors, which is the New England Historical and Genealogical Society. Let me just click on them just to show you really quickly, as they have an education page here dedicated to African American genealogy. And a little video here telling you about the resources, different documents. Again, they list a Freedmen's Bureau, manumission documents, and so on. The National Archives, which is at archives.gov. Show you really quickly that resource page. They also have an education page under genealogy ethnic heritage links. You can see they have more than just African American, but click on African American, and they have sites and resources listed here as well. Also through the National Archives, I found this. This was a handout from one of their genealogy fairs, and it talks about finding federal records to help identify former slaves and slave owners. And so you can go through this document. It's about 6 pages, I think. Oh, sorry, 7. It's going to give you some good resources there too. The Digital Library on American Slavery. So if you want to search this, it gives you some of the projects here. They have runaway slave advertisements, about slave trade, people not property, slave deeds of North Carolina. Do a search on this site. This is an article that I found that has the 10 best, what they consider the best databases for researching enslaved ancestors. Again, Digital Library on American Slavery comes up, large slave holders of 1860, records of the Southern Claims Commission, Slavery Era Insurance Registry, slave narratives, slave trade database, unknown no longer. So you can see there are 10 best here, and I think those are all worth checking out. I also wanted to talk about Legacy Family Tree webinars. You can watch these for free. Some you have to be a member, but they do have a really good webinars on doing African American genealogy research. So if we put in, so here I typed in the keyword slave, and we can see here slave narratives, tracing descendants of slaveholding families, exhaustive research. These ones are, you have to be a member. Let's see if we go to, so here in the webinar library, we have more. So you'll just have to search keywords. It's a little, they don't have a category just for African Americans, so you have to put in your keywords. During the month of May, they had a free webinar day. In June, they had a series of webinars, and they had all the African American. They had 6 webinars available for that. So it looks like you may have to join to watch those, but they're really good videos. And of course, the last thing I want to mention is YouTube. You can find many, many videos on doing genealogy research for any kind of topic, including African American genealogy, on YouTube. So I want to talk a little bit about DNA. Obviously, Ancestry and 23andMe.com are the 2 big major players. They test what is called autosomal DNA. And they'll give you an ethnicity estimate. So they may be able to say that you are 10% Nigerian and 20% Benin Togo, so on and so forth. These are estimates. They are mostly for, I would say, entertainment purposes. Myself, since I've done my DNA, they have had updates, and it's changed with each update. Although it has changed for the better, because it reflects now my research more than it did the first time I did it. The first time I had 17% Swedish. I'm like, where's that coming from? Now I don't have any Swedish in me, and that's all reflective of where I have my research and what I've done with my history, and now my DNA is reflecting that. So, and it's a good way, at least with Ancestry, you can connect with living people who share DNA with you to help you with your research. I wanted to mention this one because I was watching some YouTube videos, AfricanAncestry.com. So I'm just going to click on it to show you this website. So with AfricanAncestry.com, they have 2 tests, one of which is your mitochondrial DNA and Y chromosome DNA. So what they're saying in African Ancestry is that they are testing your mitochondrial or your Y chromosome DNA. Mitochondrial DNA is passed from mother to child, mother to child, mother to child, mother to child. So it'll be a direct maternal line. And both males and females inherit this mitochondrial DNA from their mothers. So they are taking the mitochondrial DNA, from what I understand, and they claim to be able to pinpoint it to a particular tribe in Africa. So instead of just saying Nigerian, they'll say the Hosa people or the Menembe people. Now, males, of course, carry the Y chromosome from their fathers. So they do have a Y chromosome test as well. However, just remember that there were non-consensual sexual relationships between slave masters and their female slaves. Your Y chromosome, if it's passed on from an enslaver, will be European and not African. So just to keep that in mind, I think it's might be worth checking out, but you can read more about AfricanAncestry.com on your own to make your own choice. Wanted to give you some print resources, and these are all books that are available through the Broward County Library System on African American genealogy. Black Genesis, a resource book for African American genealogy by James Rose. Finding a Place Called Home, a Guide to African American Genealogy and Historical Identity by D. Woodtor. Family Pride, The Complete Guide to Tracing African American Genealogy by Donna Beasley. Slave Genealogy, a Research Guide with Case Studies by David H. Streets. And Slave Ancestral Research, It's Something Else by Mary L. Jackson Fears. Thank you for watching. My name is Kristen Morrison, Librarian Senior at Lauderhill Town Center Library. If you have any suggestions for future episodes of Finding Your Roots or Tracing Your Roots, please email me at kcmorrison@broward.org. Thank you.